Human conflict is waged first in the mind, then with the fist. Underestimate them, and you're already defeated, declared Commander Trent of the United Terran Defense Forces. Tension buzzed through the great Galactic Assembly Hall. The allied species representatives sat in a circle on raised platforms, their unique features displaying a mix of impatience and self-assurance. At the center, General Raven of the Drowie, a reptilian giant with shimmering scales, captured the room's soft light. The human menace has been quelled, he announced. Their fleets are decimated, their outposts reduced to cinders, and their starships are debris floating in space. We've put an end to their defiance. Nods and murmurs of agreement spread among the audience. The karate diplomat, a creature glowing with shifting bioluminescent patterns, made a gurgling sound. They fell due to their pride, it commented. Simple armaments, outdated strategies. They were no match for our advanced galactic warfare. Raven lifted a claw, commanding silence. This triumph was led by the Drava. Let this be known. We subdued the most challenging race to ever venture into the cosmos. Challenging came a crisp, unexpected interruption. All eyes turned to the entrance where a solitary figure stood, dressed in a stark black uniform with silver badges. Unarmed and alone, his presence was defined by sheer audacity. The human strode forward, his footsteps resonating on the sleek floor. Challenging, he echoed, pausing just outside the central platform. An interesting choice of words. As security guards converged, Raven dismissed them with a gesture. Let him speak, the general declared, a smirk in his voice. The human, smiling slightly, introduced himself. Commander Jacob Harland of the United Terran Defense Force. You might want to reconsider your celebrations. You've overlooked a critical error. Raven cocked his head. An error? Your armadas are obliterated, your planets aflame, your troops in disarray. What error could there possibly be? Harland's smile broadened. You've ignored the fundamental rule. A tense silence filled the room. The karate diplomat's hues turned to a puzzled mix. And what is this fundamental rule? It inquired. Harland's gaze swept the room, locking eyes with various delegates. The first rule in combat against humans is this: there are no rules. Raven's scales twitched in annoyance. Absurdity. You speak in enigmas. No enigmas, Harland continued, his tone steady. Consider this: you believe you've succeeded because you adhered to warfare norms. You engaged our fleets, bombarded our settlements, dismantled our systems. All textbook strategies, all anticipated. Murmurs circulated among the representatives. Harland continued, humans don't adhere to your traditional rules. We improvise, we adjust, and we persist, even when you presume the battle has concluded. Raven leaned in, his eyes sharp and predatory. Mere bravado, a last stand without substance. Your race is vanquished. Embrace your end with some grace. Harland laughed softly, shaking his head dismissively. Extinction? Do you really believe it's all over? You've only begun to experience what humanity is capable of. You might have destroyed our fleets, but not our resolve. You obliterated our cities, yet our spirit remains intact. And while you reveled in your supposed victory, we were preparing for the next move. The karate diplomat's colors turned a worried shade of green. What next move? It queried, its voice quivering. Stepping forward, Harland's tone was low, almost a whisper, yet it filled the chamber. The part where we stopped playing by the rules. You assumed we were like you, fighting fiercely until the bitter end, then conceding defeat, he continued. Raven scowled, his talons gripping the edge of his platform tightly. Such bravado grows tiresome. You stand alone, Commander, a vestige of a vanquished race, Raven retorted disdainfully. Alone? Harland's eyebrow arched skeptically. Suddenly, the chamber's lights flickered and dimmed briefly. Raven glanced nervously at his aides, who were frantically tapping at their data pads, their faces painted with dread. What is going on? Demanded the Drowie general. Casually folding his arms, Harland's smirk evolved into a confident grin. That would be your orbital defenses shutting down. It took some time to crack your codes, but persistence does pay off. The karate diplomat's colors faded to stark white, signaling pure alarm. Rule number 1, Harland reminded them, his voice tinged with mockery. There are no rules, no boundaries, no mercy. A loud buzz filled the room as holographic screens flickered to life, displaying real-time images of Drowie spacecraft being obliterated in orbit, their structures rupturing violently, spewing fire and debris into space. Raven's face shifted from smugness to stark rage. You dare initiate an attack? He bellowed. Dare? We're just beginning, General, Harland retorted sharply. As the chamber lights flickered once more and plunged into momentary darkness, by the time they restored, Harland had vanished, his parting words resonating through the now chaotic hall. No rules, no limits, and no mercy. The assembly erupted into disarray. Delegates shouted shouted into communicators, aides dashed about frantically, and the atmosphere of earlier confidence had turned to one of sheer panic. Raven remained still, his claws digging deeper into the platform. "This is a trick," he muttered, though his voice lacked conviction. "General," an aide approached, voice trembling, "the orbital grid is completely down. We're seeing signs of coordinated attacks across our systems. Our ships are exploding. Their reactors are being pushed to critical overload." "How could this happen?" Raven roared, his tail thrashing the ground. The Cardi diplomat, now visibly shaking, interjected. "We were told humans lacked the sophistication for such. What is this? To think, to strategize," Raven snapped back. "You underestimated them at your own risk, fool." From the corner of the chamber, a low voice cut through the noise. It was Kesh, a member of the predatory avian species known as the Vrock, stepping forward with his talons clicking on the polished floor. His dark, feathered crest bristled. "What do you mean?" he chimed in, his sharp gaze fixed on the proceedings. "They've always told us, in every encounter, in every conflict, humans don't just fight to win mere battles. They strategize to win wars. Their tactics are multi-layered, unpredictable." Raven's claws clenched in frustration as the transmission ceased, echoing a silence that enveloped the chamber, punctuated only by the low murmurs of the assembled representatives. "You think you've won because you focus solely on immediate results, but for humans, the final outcome is everything," Kesh remarked, his voice steady and unyielding. Raven shot a glare at Kesh. "Why didn't you express these concerns earlier, Vrock?" he demanded. Kesh returned his gaze without flinching. "Because you wouldn't have listened." At that moment, another aide approached Raven, visibly shaken as he extended a data pad towards the general. "General, the situation is dire. It's not just our ships. They've penetrated our logistics, our communications, even our automated manufacturing. Entire production lines are grinding to a halt." The colors of the bar representative swirled in a frenzy of panic. "Impossible. Their fleets have been destroyed." Kesh let out a dry, almost mocking laugh. "Yes, their fleets, but humans themselves are the true weapon." Raven pounded his fist on the platform, a gesture of defiance and frustration. "Enough of this. Mobilize all remaining forces. We must eradicate them, and they've already vanished," Kesh interjected, his tones slicing through Raven's anger. "Even if you could find them, it would be futile. This battle isn't about ships or soldiers anymore. It's about dominance, and they're seizing it." The room fell eerily quiet as the weight of Kesh's statement settled over the assembly. Raven's breathing was heavy, his nostrils flared as he scanned the room. "We need alternatives," he growled urgently. An aide hesitated, then spoke up with a cautious voice. "General, there might be one option left. We could try to negotiate." Raven whirled towards the aide, his eyes alight with fury. "Negotiate? After their sabotage?" The aide stood firm, despite the intensity of Raven's gaze. "General, they've managed to strike at the core of our command without a single ship. If we continue on this path, it won't just be the humans who suffer, it will affect all of us. We might not have any other choice." Before Raven could formulate a response, the chamber's main display flickered to life again. This time, it was Commander Jacob Harland, nonchalantly seated at a commandeered command console. "Miss me?" he quipped, leaning back with a grin that was all too relaxed under the circumstances. Raven stepped forward, his talons scraping the floor. "You dare show your face?" "Oh, save it," Harland cut in briskly. "We don't have time for your theatrics. I just wanted to update you." The karate diplomat trembled visibly. "Update on what?" Harland's smirk broadened slightly. "Strategy. Humans don't just plan for wars. We endure them, and we emerge stronger." Raven bared his teeth. "What do you want, Harland?" "Out with it." "Want?" Harland repeated, feigning confusion. "I want nothing from you. This isn't about demands. It's about showing you that your premature celebration is over. You thought you had defeated us, but you've only spurred us into action." The transmission flickered again, then steadied. Harland's playful demeanor faded into a more serious expression. "Humans aren't just combatants, we're innovators. While you've been gloating over your conquests, we've been dissecting every piece of data about you, identifying your vulnerabilities, your oversights, your hubris." Kesh watched intently as Harland's smile returned, colder now and devoid of any amusement. "You're curious about the endgame? You'll understand it soon enough. But for now, let's just say you're about to learn a new rule." Raven's voice dropped to a menacing whisper. "And what is that rule?" Leaning close to the camera, Harland's face filled the screen. "Always assume we're 10 steps ahead." With that, the screen went dark, plunging the chamber back into a stunned silence, leaving each member to ponder the ominous implications of Harland's parting words. "True, unification alone isn't victory, but it's a start," Harland continued, his tone confident. "What we're building isn't just a response to your aggression. It's the beginning of a new era era for humanity. You've driven us together, forged us into a single force focused on survival and now, evolution. The karate diplomat's color shifted from red to a deep, contemplative purple. Evolution, you aim to advance beyond what you were. Harland nodded slightly, his expression serious. Exactly. You see us as scattered, broken, but we see opportunity. Every attack you've launched has taught us something about ourselves and about you. You've shown us where we need to grow, and trust me, we are learning. Raven remained silent, his claws still gripping the console. He understood now that Harland was not merely boasting. The humans were using this conflict as a catalyst, an accelerant for transformation that could potentially shift the balance of power. Let's cut to the chase. Harland, Raven finally spoke, his voice low and measured. What are your terms? What will it take to end this conflict on terms you'd accept? Harland leaned forward, the light from the console highlighting the determination in his eyes. Terms? We're past the point of simple ceasefires and territory negotiations. We're not just fighting for a piece of the galaxy anymore. We're fighting for our right to redefine what it means to be human in this new galaxy. You want terms? Recognize our sovereignty and our right to progress without interference. Kesh whispered something under his breath, too low for the microphones to catch, but his posture indicated he realized the gravity of Harland's demands. This wasn't just a war, it was a declaration of a new existential philosophy for humanity. The karate diplomat fluctuated between hues, indicating its own processing of the situation. And if we refuse? Harland's smirk faded, replaced by a steely gaze. Then we continue this dance. But know this, every step you take against us only makes us stronger. We've adapted to far worse than what you've thrown at us so far. Raven's scales bristled slightly as he absorbed the implications. This changes everything. You're not just rebels, you're revolutionaries. Exactly, Harland replied, his voice firm. We're not going back to the way things were. You pushed us into this corner, and now we're coming out swinging. This isn't just about surviving anymore. It's about thriving, about taking what we've learned and using it to transform. The chamber was quiet again, each representative digesting the full weight of Harland's words. Raven knew the decision before them was monumental. They could escalate the conflict, possibly leading to endless war, or they could accept a new, formidable entity in the galaxy, an evolved humanity. Consider your position carefully, Harland added, a hint of warning in his tone. We're ready for whatever comes next. Are you? As the transmission ended, the chamber remained enveloped in a heavy silence. Each member of the assembly now faced a stark choice. Continue a war with an adversary that grows stronger with every battle, or negotiate a peace with a newly unified and evolving human race that no longer viewed itself as just another species in the galactic community, but as a transformative force within it. Raven looked around, knowing that the decisions made in the next hours would shape the future of the galaxy. Raven's resolve hardened as he pondered the full implications of their situation. The weight of Kesh's advice and Harland's provocations echoed in the vast, now quiet chamber. He realized the gravity of their predicament. Not just a war of fleets and firepower, but a battle of wits and willpower against an adversary that refused to yield even under extreme adversity. As the final echoes of footsteps faded away, Raven remained motionless, staring at the galaxy maps flickering with countless alerts. His species had faced numerous challenges before, but none quite like this. Humanity's resilience and adaptability were unlike anything the Assembly had contended with. They were not just fighting an enemy, they were up against an evolving doctrine of survival that rewrote the rules of engagement. With a deep, rumbling sigh, Raven activated the communication console. Connect me to the lead strategist, he ordered the AI, his voice echoing slightly in the empty chamber. The screen flickered to life, revealing the serious faces of his military advisors. We need a new strategy, Raven began without preamble. The humans have changed the game. They adapt and evolve with each strike we make. Our conventional tactics are obsolete in this scenario. One of the strategists, a grizzled veteran with scars marking his chitinous exoskeleton, nodded gravely. We've noticed an increase in their guerrilla operations. They hit us hard where we're weakest and vanish before we can retaliate. Raven drummed his fingers on the table, each tap resonating with his growing frustration. Then we must be unpredictable. Kesh suggested we adopt their tactics, strike unexpectedly, disrupt their plans, and sow confusion. Another strategist, younger and less adorned, chimed in. We could deploy decoy operations to mislead their intelligence, draw them out into the open, and we should intensify our cyber warfare, added a third, her voice calm but intense. If we can infiltrate their networks, we might gain the upper hand in disrupting their command and control structures. Raven considered each suggestion, his mind working through the implications of each. Implement implement these strategies immediately and keep everything under tight secrecy. The less predictable our moves, the better. As the strategists acknowledged and signed off, Raven was left alone with his thoughts. He knew this was just the beginning of a much larger transformation in their military doctrine, one that might ultimately change the face of galactic warfare. The war with humanity was not just a conflict to be won or lost. It was a catalyst for evolution, forcing both sides to innovate and adapt at a pace that might have seemed unimaginable before. For Raven and the Assembly, it was a harsh lesson in humility and adaptability. For humanity, it was a testament to their indomitable spirit and ingenuity. As the stars outside the chamber continued their ancient dance, oblivious to the struggles of empires and species, Raven settled in for a long night, planning, pondering, preparing, for in this new kind of war, only the most adaptable, the most cunning would survive. And somewhere out there, in the vast, cold reaches of space, humanity was already preparing its next move. Raven knew that underestimating them again would be fatal. The game had changed, and so must they.